The second issue, which is electoral justice and related matters. As I was walking in, there were questions with respect to the authenticity of figures that have been made in claims and counterclaims. And I remember that the DCI, on its own motion, initiated investigations into the authenticity of figures that were being shared around. I think it is within the powers of this National Dialogue Committee to summon the DCI and ask him how far he has gone with those investigations. As a state officer, he must be held to account. He wrote to the chief officer of the election management body, and I think he owes it to Kenyans to tell us why he stopped, or why he has slowed down, or how far he has gone, because there could be a possibility that, you know, he was told to stop. Is it because it would require opening of servers to ascertain the veracity of those figures? And it would be important for this committee to want to know how the DCI spend public resources on that. Because as a civil society organization, and more so as one who has observed elections in 28 countries in Africa, for the African Union, I want to believe, and it is provided for in the Constitution, that elections be audited. Unless there is anybody who knows something that the rest of us do not know. Secondly, there's been an argument based on frustrations by a number of Kenyans as to whether Kenya's election management body should be temporary or permanent. It is the view of the Civil Society Reference Group and the Kenya National Civil Society Center that looking at the heavy tasks that fall within the purview of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that we can only have a permanent election management body for this country. In any case, co-chairs, it is significant to also outline the fact that some of our elected members have not been lucky enough to serve out their full terms, have been unfortunate to lose their lives either through accidents or ill health, and time and again, the election management body is called upon to conduct by-elections to fill in those constituents. So we root for a permanent election management body. Secondly, with respect to the election management body and restructuring, we think that the current manner in which the incumbent president, the overbearing role that the president plays in the appointment of the different bodies that are responsible for the appointment of the panel, gives the incumbent an overbearing role and influence in the constitution of the commission. And we therefore call on this commission to call for the immediate disbandment of the current panel as currently constituted. Because if you look at all those commissions, whether it's the Public Service Commission, the different commissions that appoint the panelists, all of them have their leaderships appointed by the sitting president. And you can therefore not, turn a blind eye to the fact that, the current mechanism where a panel was established on the basis of, being appointed by commissions that are themselves appointed by the sitting president, gives an incumbent who in most cases is also a candidate in presidential elections, an overbearing role, and that needs to be structured. We think that as a country, whereas the IBC is crafted as independent, the current IBC is only independent in name. The reality is that the IBC is controlled and manipulated and has lent itself to manipulation by the powers that be. And if you are in doubt, all you need to read is Isaac Hassan's book, where he narrates how he went out of his way, and he has the audacity to document that in his memoir, how he went about looking for people who could serve as CEO of the election management body, how he tapped certain people. Yet, publicly he advertised the position. Many Kenyans applied thinking that, IBC is an equal and opportunity employer. Yet, in Isaac's own book, he documents how you know.
So, but I think your time is really running out. So go to the issue.
Yeah, so I'm saying that whereas the intention of those of us, and Honorable Marina, you remember how we co-chaired the Technical Committee on Citizenship and the Bill of Rights here at the Bomas of Kenya in 2003 and 2004. We think that Kenya does not, at the moment, is not ready for the kind of commission that we have. We are therefore calling for a mixed model. And in a mixed model, there are basically three types of electoral commissions. There's the independent model, the mixed model, and the government model. What we have in the current constitution that purports to be an independent model is actually a government model. And I've already illustrated how the current law that the president assented to earlier in this year gives the incumbent sweeping powers to influence who becomes the commissioner. As a matter of fact, I can tell you some of the people that would have been commissioners had this process gone on. We know them, and we know who called them to apply. And that is normally what happens with all constitutional commissions. And so we are calling for a mixed model where key political actors play a role. Pundits of the 2022 elections have sought to advance the view that the last elections were the fairest, the freest, and most credible. I can tell you without fear of contradiction that having been an election observer in 28 African countries, the 2002, in my view, remains in Kenya's memory as the most free and fair elections. And there was a formula to that, because the political parties had a say in who constituted the commission then. It is my submission, therefore, that we revert to that model until such a time when our institutions, including constitutional commissions, would be strong enough, because as a country, we must admit that we have not been able to identify people with strong characters can withstand the pressures that come from those wielding state power. And I've already given you the example where Isaac Hassan, in his book,
I think now we'll go to questions.
Mentions that.
We'll go to questions.
Lastly, Chair, and I would seek your indulgence, because we co-chaired with you the Committee on Citizenship. The right to protest, to assemble, to picket and present presentations. We are in all this as a result of protests. And it pains me when people in authority want to create the impression that we can only protest when they so wish. And we have seen how they do it. In regions that are perceived to be pro-government, people are at liberty to protest. In regions that are perceived to be anti-government, people are not even allowed to step out of their homes and are actually killed and maimed in their humble abodes. We are saying that this committee has a duty to recognize that because we are in this process because of recent protests, that we must not just read about the right to protest in Article 37, but must amend the Public Order Act, and specifically Section 5, that says there shall be no public protest except in accordance with this law. Yet, that is a law that was passed way back by the colonialists to restrain us from removing them from our own country. I do not think that that law is relevant, and I think that we need to. Lastly, the very last Chair.
I think, Chair.
Super, you're putting me in a tight
I think, Chair.
Now you must stop.
Chair.
I understand, and we have been patient. I was to appear before you at 2. So reciprocate my patience also, Chair. With the
30 seconds, Suba, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, and I'm looking at my watch.
Exactly. I would have failed in my responsibility and appearance here if I did not raise the attention of the committee to a law that was passed by the 12th Parliament and assented to by the late Mwai Kibaki, the 4th President of this Republic, the 3rd. On 13th of February 2013, that law is called the Public Benefits Organizations Act and was meant to repeal the NGO Coordination Act. For the entire period that Jubilee, that a number of you are part of, was in power for 10 years, they sat on that law, claiming that it is the civil society that took them to The Hague. The Kenya Kwanza administration, in its manifesto, promised to implement the Public Benefit Organizations Act. It is more than a year since Kenya Kwanza came to power, that law has not been implemented. The NGO sector tracks to this economy 180 billion in the last financial year. More than this Kenya's gold that we see on TV, tea and coffee combined. Add even, Maua and so on from Naivasha.
Okay, Suba, thank you.
So we are calling on this committee to pick up this issue and remind the Kenya Kwanza administration that a promise is a debt and it must be paid.
Thank you, Suba. Yes, Senator.
Thank you. I want to thank the presenter. I have a question for him, one or two. He, speaking to the issue, Suba, of the various models for appointing IBC commissioners. You say there is a government model, the independent, and a mixture of the two. It is your argument then that the current model, according to you, and I don't agree with you, is a government model. But then I want to say, if it is a government model, then it must be a very good model, because if a government model can result in the loss of an election by the government of the day, then isn't it such a good model? Because what else will you be looking for other than a commission that, according to you, is appointed by government of the day, but still goes ahead to conduct an election where that government loses? Isn't that what we are looking for? Second and last question to him, Chairperson. I have listened to you on the issue of demonstrations. Perhaps you will help us, because there are two contestations. When you listen to people that speak like you, either on your side or from the side of our colleagues across the table, on the right to picket and demonstrate, they feel as if it is a right that is absolute with no limitation, despite the fact that in going about your duties or your demonstration and picketing, sometimes you interfere with the rights of other Kenyans. What is the nexus, or at what point should government seek to interfere so as to ensure that as you go about your rights, you don't interfere with the rights of other Kenyans? Because you have pointed out and said that there are certain regions where demonstrations are allowed. And I'll point to you a simple example. When the Nyamakima traders wanted to present a petition to Parliament earlier on this year, I saw them. Where I sit in my office is on the first floor Parliament building. And they came, made all the noise that they could, and were allowed to present that petition. Later on, when there have been subsequent demonstration, there have been confrontation. And when you ask, why is it the case? He says, for example, the demonstrators that are being interfered with are stopping about those who want to go about their duties. If there is a car and they have blocked the road, they don't allow them to drive. They pickpocket other people. Therefore, what mechanisms have other jurisdictions, as you've said you're a well-traveled man, have they put in place to ensure that citizens of those countries enjoy these rights and they live freely together? Those who want to picket, those who don't want, they mix so that you have a beautiful country, because that's the picture that you want to paint for us. It will be good to hear from you on that.
And perhaps even as he continues, you said that you've you have monitored elections in many African countries. Actually, you mentioned 28. 28 of them. In the case of Kenya, and this was mentioned earlier by Felix, that between 1992 to 2022, the only time there were no issues after elections was 2002. Do you see a constant political factor in all those elections, and what do you deduce out of it? Constant election factor, political factor in all those elections, and only one was peaceful, free, and fair. Is it possible that elections are only free and fair when a particular person wins?
Or is not on the ballot? And then just to support, to advance that, what particularly Senator Cheriot said, listening to some of the presentations made, especially those that appear to be casting aspersions on the victory of Kenya Kwanza, including the just concluded presentations from part of our coalition adversaries. A government that is probably one of the strongest units in our history, of a sitting president and one of the senior-most opposition leader in the country, is beaten in every aspect, from tallying to collection of results, to declaration, to monitoring, to every aspect, then I can tell you without a doubt that election is either foolproof or that government was too whatever. Number two, to Kemuntu, I used to have a lot of contempt for politicians when I was in the civil society. So much contempt until the day I ran for an election. It is so hard to get elected. These people face unforetold perils in the search for those votes. Nyoro is just right there behind you. He will tell you how hard it is to get elected. I myself am testimony, especially if you are running in a place which is not a stronghold. They are members of parliament for whatever they are worth. They represent us in parliament. They have spoken to these bills and made them law. At what point are the citizens heard? Because I think these are institutions of government that work side by side. There are processes that are put together. So why would you think that MP, even in the minority, we could just say that these are majoritarian, and therefore all of us now go for demonstrations. We don't accept these taxes. To hell with all the institutions that we created.
Suba?
Yes, thank you very
2
much.
minutes?
Yes, first of all, I want to say that the common factor in all these elections where there have been issues is rigging and manipulation of the vote. Rigging and manipulation of the vote.
By the way, so that we can deal with Omar and my sister here, this one constant factor we keep on talking about, they should realize, just for their benefit, that the Supreme Court in its wisdom in 2017 agreed with that one factor.
Exactly.
In that one instance.
So that you be fair. I don't think we're here. These issues are so big. Yeah, I was the running mate in 2013 and 2017. I can tell you that we beat the government side.
Exactly.
All right?
Well,
this is why we're here, to deal with stolen elections. The culture of stolen elections. If we keep on aggrandizing ourselves on how easy or how difficult the whole thing was. I mean, Suba, you should not feel intimidated. Speak the truth.
Suba, I wouldn't intimidate you. You're my chairman.
Intimidated.
You are my chairman.
I was your chair in the students' government. You were
And I
my
was your vice chair, yes.
And then we co-chaired the technical committee. But the point I want to make, and in response to what Hassan has said a bit in a low tone, in the 2002 elections that you seem to be referring to, the gentleman you seem to be referring was not even a candidate. Yet elections were free and fair, and everybody accepted them as such. And so I want to demonstrate to you that if we could avoid, and you see there is this notion that the current president was not in government. Yet he earned salary as deputy president up to the month of September. I mean, who recruited the Chebukatis of this world? No. I can tell you the intrigue. Chebukati was second last. How he even became chair of the commission is a mystery that we need to investigate. In all recruitment processes, the top three can do the job. How did the second last person become the chair? That is manipulation that happens.
Maybe you can furnish us with that report.
And that is the openness we want in the recruitment process moving forward.
Report that Chebukati was last in the second last.
Second last, and we know even the points. If you want me to tell you,
us with that report.
We know even the points.
Furnish us with that report. In fact, we hold you to that. We will wait for that report.
We know even the figures.
Where will later your report?
And we know even how people said, this Akombe, how good do you think she is? We know even the debates that went on. And so don't tempt us.
I'm tempting. We are tempting you to bring that report.
Super, don't also try and intimidate us. And I want to kindly request that.
Of the civil society will not get you anywhere.
Excuse me, sorry. I kindly want to request that we don't go the route we are going.
Exactly.
Because I don't think peddling
unsubstantiated.
yeah. So Suba, yes. I know you can be a real politician. Please be a civil society
Chair.
professional right now.
Chair.
Avoid getting into politics.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chair. We could equally come here and peddle all manner of stories about what we know or what we know in the sense of what Suba is saying about what happened to Jebukati. But we have chosen to rise above that. We want to stick to issues. So I want to request him to please spare us the innuendos and the stories.
Indeed, Aaron, as we do so, because this is a serious engagement, let us avoid demonizing. Because I've listened to Omar over time, saying one constant factor, another constant factor. I want you to know one of those factors has been sitting here with you. Because as a running mate to Raila in 2013 and in 2017, okay? And I know you were my Secretary General.
You considered the election of 2007 and you Peter Katikati up.
No, that's a different thing.
Kindly, Suba, kindly finish one.
Of course I did. It's a fact I did, and I told your country.
Kindly, Suba, finish.
You know, when you stop being childish, Omar, we'll make progress.
Hassan, let's
don't get angry, sir.
Okay, let's Hassan.
That's why you'll never be governor of Mombasa. I can give it to you.
That's why
now this is going.
President of Kenya, I can give it to you.
I think finish my session.
But Hassan, I kindly request that you contain yourself. Hassan, kindly.
I mean, let me.
Hassan, kindly.
Let's
stop attacking right now.
Co-chair,
cannot come here and also start to intimidate us.
Co-chair, I beg.
Be governor here, governor there. You will also not be president of Kenya.
Kindly. No, Hassan, kindly. We've done so well.
Everybody. I'm so ashamed that at one time I was Secretary General of my party. I really apologize.
I now want to beg kindly that the two of you now kindly, I beg you, stop what you're doing. Let Super Churchill have his last minute so we can move to the next one. Kindly, I beg you.
I wanted to respond to issues relating to protests. Now, quite often, and the model. Now, you talked about the model, yes.
And may I kindly request that the exchange be expunged from the Hansard, kindly.
I've said that there are three different election management body models. There is the independent, there's the governmental, and the mixed model. In countries that have developed, that have overgrown the culture of theft of the vote that is so rampant in this country, they don't care about government officials running the elections. And that's what happens in countries like the United States of America, in Finland, and so on. People have trust in institutions. I've said that our election management body, that is appropriately called Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, is only independent in name, but as soon as they are appointed, they lend themselves to manipulation by the state. And that's why I've said, because we seem not to have strong personalities of the kind of that led the first constitutional commission, the first generation of constitutional commissions were led by people of impeccable and strong character. We seem to be losing those commissions as days go by. And that is why, in my view, and considered view as an election observer for many years, I want to plead with this committee to consider restoring peace in our electoral process by enabling political actors to have a say, not just in the appointment of the panel, but in the commissions themselves. Because as the 2002 election has demonstrated, and which we all celebrated, for the first time, I was in Kondele monitoring elections. The people of Kondele went to the street not to throw stones, but to celebrate Kibaki's victory.
Maybe
we need to consider that, so that
we've had you, Suba.
Lastly, on the gender issue.
Yes.
You know, you and I were here at Bomas. The constitution, the draft constitution that we adopted, had a different electoral system. It is that electoral system that goes with the 2/3 gender principle. When Abdikadir Mohammed and company went to Naivasha, they changed the electoral system without revisiting the principles. It is my submission that, looking at the memorandum that His Excellency the President William Ruto sent to the two chambers of parliament, looking at the proposals here to entrench position of leader of official opposition and that of prime cabinet secretary, there is a yearning for a parliamentary system of government in this country. Publicly we deny it. But the reality is that when you look at all these arrangements, including entrenchment of funds, CDF, Affirmative Action Fund, that goes with a different system of government. We do not have to call that head of government prime minister. In South Africa, for example, the gallant people of South Africa do not go to the polls to vote for whoever will be president. They vote for the party. The parties present a list. It is in that list that if you wanted to meet the 2/3 gender principle, for every 2 men or women, you have a woman or a man. For every 2 or 3, you have a person with disability. I saw the people of El Chamus pleading here that they also want to feel part and parcel of this republic. It is that system that makes it possible for the El Chamus to sit in the National Assembly. And I want to therefore submit and plead with this committee that with all this evidence of unstated yearning for a parliamentary system, that we do not want to boldly say so, let us consider reverting to that system. We can still call our head of government and state president. That's what they do in South Africa, but it's a purely parliamentary system.
Okay,
that is what they do in Angola, where the people vote for the party. They don't vote for individuals. That is the surest way of ensuring inclusivity of all cadres of public opinion, all cadres of ethnic representation.
Thank you, Suba. Thank you very much, Suba. Finally, the gracious lady. 1 minute. The gracious lady.
Just lack of ability. They are developed, and I assure you, and I can tell you that. So what we are looking for that going forward, that let those promises be like written memos that are binding, that when a person has been elected to parliament, we as citizens, we as consumers can hold them accountable, so that going forward we will not have these issues of just coming and smearing us with very nice oil to get elected, and once you get to parliament, we are still having the same
Thank you very much. Asante sana. Thank you very much. Asante sana. I think we come to the end of that session.
Thank you very much.
Suba, with you comes all the all that. You haven't changed. Asante, thank you very much. The next is the CPF Financial Services. You're next. CPF, financial services. Please have a seat, and you have 15 minutes starting now. Oh, God. Okay. And then after him, I think we'll have you Gatobu for about 5 minutes. After CPF, yes, because they're already seated. Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, chairs of this August committee. My name is Jose Akili, the Group Managing Director and CEO of CPF Financial Services, which is an administrator for pension services for counties and national government. And here with me is my two officers, David, who is an economist, and Sospita, who is also an economist. And we are very glad to be before this committee, at least to share something a little bit different. And we beg that at least with the heavy work you are doing, you can at least listen to something different from us.
Do that.
We'll be very glad to do that.
Now, the gist of our proposal is that we are coming from this, what we call the social protection and social security sector. And we are cognizant of one major issue, that if you listen to all the complaints and issues raised by Kenyans and the leaders here, all touch on scarcity of resources. All leaders are thinking well for their people, for their various regions, but at the end of the day, what makes us all have fights and challenges is that we have scarcity of resources which we can take care of all the issues we have. So the issue is this: we must actually find a different way of funding all our needs. We must, I think the time has come that we have reached a ceiling. For example, we've tried to move the ceiling for borrowing. I think we are.
Mr. Kili, I beg that you go straight to your issues, because otherwise you run out of time.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So we have two proposals. One is on tax reforms, which we think as a committee you should consider, and also the people of Kenya should consider. And the other one is linking tax to benefits for the people, the social protection benefits for the people. And we have tried to outline in our simulation, which we have tried to summarize. I will say that we have a very low coverage of social programs in Kenya. Only 13% of our Kenyans have access to social assistance programs. There is a whole lot of problems on corruption because people can be explained by all these challenges. Our dependency ratio is at over 90.2%, and these are statistics, of course, which I'm quoting from the relevant information within the government and the systems. Now, Kenya is lagging behind in implementation of its commitments under High-Law Convention on what we call the social protection floors, particularly of 2012. The budget deficit, we have a budget deficit of 5.7 of GDP, and our GDP is around 12 trillion. So we have a shortfall of 720 billion every year. Our revenue collection data is at 16% of GDP, which is below the targets in the East African community. The East African community target is about 25%. So actually we are below. Our collection efforts are not good because they are quite expensive and difficult to implement. So our proposal will address how to make it easier to collect taxes and also reduce the taxes, having spread it to every Kenyan, but also reduce the burden on all the Kenyans. There's an over-reliance on the formal sector. Only 3 million Kenyans majorly contribute to the tax base. 15 million people in the informal sector are not taxed as high as the ones in the formal sector. 80% of transfers are carried out in cash. Growth in national expenditure from 2.4 trillion in 2018 to 3.36 in 2022. In other words, our revenue is actually lacking behind our expenditure, and therefore we are always working with a deficit. What is our proposal, Chair? We want to propose that we move away for the citizen alone, not the corporates, we are leaving it aside for now. We are saying, under the Constitution, every Kenyan should at least pay tax. But that tax should be capable of actually being paid by that person and should be also used to benefit those same people in the right way and also benefit the country. So we are proposing that we try to think and get away from the taxes which are more direct, the formal sector taxes like payee for the people who are working, and also the other domestic taxes which are a multiplicity, and try to give Kenyans their gross salaries and others, and then ask them in a properly organized system where there is a digital technology to actually pay at the time of spending their money. So they will pay tax when they spend. And we have found that, and we have worked on this simulation actually practically in our organization, working with around 400 employees. And we have found that it is possible people will pay taxes and other things they have to pay subconsciously, as opposed to if you have to ask them to declare at the end of the year. The other one is to link in the minds of the people to pay tax and the attendant benefits to themselves. As long as we are not linking it to their benefits, in other words, government takes everything, then allocates on a budget. If it can actually allocate and say, when we collect so much tax from you at the point of collection, and CAREC takes it, there is a payment platform which separates the money and goes into what we are proposing now, which is in our Vision 2030, this Consolidated Social Protection Fund, which is actually was envisaged in our Vision 2030. So we are saying it's time that we entrench this particular fund, which is a fund of funds, in the Constitution, so that this fund of funds, which there will be a co-contribution element from the taxes the mwananchi pays, a portion goes to that fund, and then the mwananchi also pays another portion, which is his own contribution, and that pot grows big, and then that fund finances the sub-funds below it. The sub-funds below it include our universal health, our universal social security, our universal needs of all kinds. I have actually, to save time, outlined all of them. The main thing is to make Kenyans feel that their taxes, paying tax directly impacts them. I've actually even said, if we really want to deal with this issue of poverty, give the Kenyans part of the tax and their own contribution into their chamas, into their circles, so that they can actually grow the economy, and then they continue paying tax. And they will not feel it if they pay. Most of us, we pay taxes, particularly VAT and others, whenever we buy things. We don't even think about it. If we can make life for Kenyans like that and make it simpler, our tax collection is very difficult. A lot of enforcement is needed. So what we are saying, members of the committee, is that consider that you want to solve the problem of social protection, which is a main problem even affecting the issue of cost of living, by actually setting up this particular tax regime. The other issue is that, and I want to show the current situation currently, how we collect our taxes. It's actually in one of the pages inside. You see, that is a taxation tax which we are proposing vis-a-vis the current taxation. On the current taxation, we are hardly collecting about 2 trillion, I think as of last year. But in the simulated proposal, even at the rate of 16%, when you have removed all the other taxes, payee and for the citizens, and I'm talking about the citizens alone, not the corporates, you will actually raise most likely between 3 to 6 trillion without the one entity really feeling the pain which you're currently feeling. If you look at the other simulation, we are calling the other model is of the benefits now, tax plus. Let there be a linkage that tax is not a bad thing in the minds of the people. When they pay tax, there's a linkage to the benefits. The other also issue we are dealing with here is that when the two levels of government are well funded and funded at source, when the money is being collected, there's likely to be less bickering over revenue, and therefore we have proposed a formula whereby as the money is collected, the system of digital platforms which are able to be implemented will actually split the money to all the people concerned directly. So you can see the simulation there. It shows you the higher figures. we are willing that if finds favor with this committee and also the Kenyan government and the people of Kenya, this can be piloted first in one of the sectors as a test case, and then after that, and eventually we shall see that we have adequate funds to be able to take care of all our needs. The most biggest problem is that politicians have become social protection providers to the citizens. You are actually giving money, and that's why you keep on asking for the CDF funds. You keep on asking for any other women fund, everything, because you are trying to fund social protection. We are simply telling you, you can actually save yourself from this problem by creating this structure, and you can now be able to play your role, which is the 3 roles of a legislator. And
kindly note you are now at 9 minutes.
Okay, we actually done. What I will do is to allow my colleague, Sospita, to just maybe highlight a bit about the model and what you call the technology behind it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very quickly, Chair. I think the key drivers for the success of the model that we are presenting, number 1, is to move the society into a cashless society. And we had an example of this during the COVID season, where voluntarily Kenyans moved into a cashless society to avoid the issues of COVID. And we saw what happened to the revenue generated from M-Pesa for the particular company, that's Safaricom. If you look at even the revenues right now, they are much higher than even the GDP of the country. And we then wonder if we are able to levy a tax around consumption, especially for non-basic goods, then the government is able to collect much more in revenue than relying on the 3 million Kenyans who really, this is just milk in a dying cow. There are over 15 million Kenyans who are not adequately covered in terms of the taxation. So a cashless society, number 1, which will then be driven by subconscious contribution or tax payment, where citizens don't even have to think. You know, when you go to the supermarket, you don't think about VAT. You just buy the good as it is. So there will be subconscious contribution. Then what will also be key here is the unique identifier. I think the government is moving towards this. This was a Huduma number, now turned Maisha number. That will be important to have for every citizen, then registration with the KRA to allow everybody to be netted and to widen the tax base. I've mentioned the issue of exempting of the basic goods just to ensure that the poor are well taken care of and the consumption is really on the non-basic goods. So, Chair, I think the model we have presented there also allows for automation. We've already seen this happening where the consolidated fund, the collection of taxes can be automatically taken to the consolidated fund and then redistributed according to a formula into the different funds that we are talking about, whether it's to the county governments directly, according to the formula of the national government, and then from there into the social protection funds that we have talked about. So, Chair, I think those will be very key for the success, and we are seeing that we are proposing that this will be a great improvement in terms of tax collection and even building equality in society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think now do you have any questions, clarifications, members?
Well, I thank you, Wanakili, and I like your bit on benefits of creating a fair and just society. And your Roman 7, where you say politicians can focus on their core mandate by eradicating the handout culture. Indeed, that's the problem we have in this country. But don't you think you're a little bit idealistic? Because you're proposing this whole thing has to do with reduction of the cost of living. What I think Kenyans would want to hear from you is what it is that can be done in the immediate run to alleviate the suffering. It has been said that this is a global problem. That is debatable, because one of the things is the cost of the crude oil has actually not been going up, and we are blaming all this on the cost of fuel. So, your proposal, I think, don't you think we need further interrogation into the future, but to be able to help the work of this committee? Because you're actually like almost suggesting a super fund, another fund, which to which Kenyans will then be taxed, so that we can fund it. When Kenyans hear of further taxation, I think we lose them. That's my observation, and I thank you for your paper.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to say something to that, Kili?
Yes, I would like to respond to His Excellency by saying that I think, first of all, I'm not an economist myself. I'm a lawyer, but I'm a CEO. Yeah. And I believe in incremental progress, first of all, that there are experts who can deal with current challenges. But I have been able to think through what in the medium term and the long term will solve our problem. So I may not have an answer, and I don't want to make say that I can have an answer for you of alleviating the current situation. I think maybe one of the things I heard, at least today, from Cabinet release is that the government is calling on Kenyans and the government itself to reduce expenses of government. I think that, to me, is a beginning, because if you look at the deficit we are definitely living beyond our means. Yeah. So that's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to understand one last thing, because you're trying to suggest a funding taxing model that is justiciable. But you say that there's a final tax that shall be levied at source. That is on all transactions for goods, services, and works for all citizens. So you are still levying the same tax. And then you would still say that there should be no basic tax levied on goods to avoid regression and lack of equity between the poor and rich. But you're still taxing them at source. Okay. This will reflect on the final outcome.
Okay. I think I would really request that you spend time to read our document. I know the time will not be there, but try your best. We're actually saying remove all the domestic taxes referring to citizens, every other. Pay, for example, for the employed. Remove VAT for everybody who is a citizen. For now, leave the corporates to pay the VAT and other taxes. But for the citizen, now the citizen at the moment pay is at the rate of 30 to 35. What we are saying here is that if you spread that everybody pays at the point, one tax only, transaction tax, at the point of purchase of such goods. And what I'm saying, committee, is that the best way to know the real income of a person is what they spend. And if you spend it, and we are saying, deal with it at the issue, at the retail spending, both for services and works and both. And the rate we are proposing is actually come down from 35 or 30 to 16%. So there's a reduction, but a widening. And it's only one tax for one income.
Has this been tried elsewhere?
Yes, madam.
Where?
It has been tried in a number of countries. We have some Eastern Europe countries who are actually collecting taxes, transaction tax. We have some elements of it, although it has now, they have changed their mode a bit. That is Dubai. Dubai has been collecting this kind of tax, and they are very successful in that. But unfortunately, of course, I think maybe because they have reached the level of, they are beginning to also introduce some other taxes.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we come to an end of that submission. Tumeshukuru. I will now give the Honorable Gatobu exactly 5 minutes, because you were not invited, but we've decided to give you a few minutes like we did with the Governor Waitito, because we don't want anyone to leave here feeling rejected or not accepted.
Thank you very much.
So Honorable Gatobu, we are going to give you 5 minutes. Try to be as summarized as possible.
Give to the chair.
I actually have a copy, but well, proceed, Gatobu.
Thank you very much, Chair, co-chairs, and honorable members. I really thank God for this opportunity to present our proposals. As you already mentioned, Chair, my name is Honorable Boniface Kinoti Gatobu. I'm the Governance and Advocacy Lead at SHOFCO, Shining Hope for Communities. And with me, my colleagues, Catherine in charge of SHOFCO Urban Networks. We have Neto in charge of SHOFCO Youth. We have Rachel, who is the chair of SHOFCO Women. And we have Okewa, who is the chair of regional committees. Chair, very briefly, I want to mention from the onset who we are. Shining Hope for Communities is by far the most successful non-government organization in Kenya. We've been in operation for the last 19 years, since 2004. We're in 33 counties. One of our most successful programs is SHOFCO Urban Networks, in which we have a membership of 2.4 million Kenyans. We've done a lot in supporting urban poor communities. We have about 6 hospitals set up in some of the poorest communities in Nairobi and outside Nairobi. We have a center for girls, needy girls in Mathare and one in Kibera, and through them we've educated needy girls from needy background, about 733 of them. Chair, briefly we are here today to present just on one matter in your agenda, that is the lowering cost of living. Lowering cost of living.
Okay.
And I'll go directly into that.
Yes.
And as I present on this, Chair, I want to say, as the lead and advocacy lead at SHOFCO, I want to mention I'm an expert in this. I've served with you previously in government as a member of parliament. And I've also served as a director of the President's Delivery Unit for the last 5 years, supervising various government projects over the country. And I want to state very clearly what lies in our memoranda is not to increase or decrease the taxes that are being levied in the country, but rather redistribute them in a way that we can derive stronger economic gain for the sake of boosting economic productivity in the country. Chair, our proposal is based on a very basic proposal in the Constitution on equity in taxation. It's also based primarily on the manifesto of the governing Kenya Kwanza. Quoting from Kenya Kwanza, Chair, the manifesto says we should shift our focus from large dams and household community to household community water projects with emphasis on harvesting and recycling water. Further, Chair, the Kenya Economic Survey of 2022 states that agriculture contributes about 22.4% of the GDP in the country. Over 70% of Kenyans are employed in the agricultural sector, and as SHOFCO we felt that unless we have a way of supporting the agricultural sector in Kenya, then we will have failed in our mandate of serving the country. What we are primarily proposing, Chair, is an amendment of the Kenya Roads Board Act of 1993. Whereby there was an introduction of the road maintenance levy, which is the biggest share of the cost of petroleum products in the country. Under the Kenya Roads Board Act of 1993 and the amendment of 1999, in the current cost of fuel, about 211 shillings of super petrol in Nairobi, 18 shillings is going to road maintenance. And it is out of this act that we've seen a big transformation in the state of roads in our country. But we felt, Chair, in the spirit of equity in this country, much of the expenditure in petroleum is coming from the agricultural sector. Most of the vehicles on our roads are agricultural vehicles, carrying agricultural produce, carrying fertilizer and so on. And we felt we would have a big impact in the growth of this economy if we can dedicate part of that revenue, part of the road maintenance levy, to boosting agriculture. And that is the backbone of our memoranda. And number 5, we are proposing this. This memoranda is requesting to amend the Irrigation Act of number 14 of 2019, the Kenya Roads Board Act number 7 of 1999, the Road Maintenance Levy Fund Act of number 9 of 1993, and other relevant laws to achieve the following. Change the road maintenance levy to infrastructure development and maintenance levy fund, so that part of the fund can be used to develop irrigation infrastructure in all parts of Kenya and therefore boost the agricultural sector. B, have the National Irrigation Authority become a beneficiary of the new Infrastructure Development and Maintenance Levy Fund alongside Kenya Rural Roads Authority, Kenya Urban Roads Authority, and Kenya National Highways Authority. C, have the National Irrigation Authority share the funds it gets from the new Infrastructure Development and Maintenance Levy equally amongst all the 290 constituencies, so that the funds are used to develop various irrigation projects in all the 290 constituencies. To ensure this is done successfully, the National Irrigation Authority is to use the same structure used by the Kenya Rural Roads Authority in sharing funds in maintaining roads in all the 290 constituencies. This memoranda aims at achieving ensuring each constituency receives at least 100 million of the new Infrastructure Development and Maintenance Levy Fund through the National Irrigation Authority to ensure that various irrigation projects in all the 290 constituencies benefit from the funds and overall agricultural productivity of the Republic of Kenya is boosted. So, Honorable Chair, that is the basic content of our memoranda. We've given you the physical copy, and we believe with this shift in the legislation of the country, and we're able to channel most of the funds collected under the fuel maintenance, road maintenance levy fund, and focus them to agriculture, which is the biggest support sector of the economy, then we can be able to lower the cost of living. Because one of the causes of the high cost of living in this country is because most of the basic commodities we consume in Kenya are imported. And we know the agricultural sector is performing very poorly, mainly because of drought. So we believe if we can boost agriculture through borrowing from the petroleum levy, then that way we can boost productivity, lower poverty, and lower the cost of living. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa, and your team. Anybody with a question, clarification? Looks like, okay. Co-chair. Looks like you have
made a big
very
effort,
clear,
Mheshimiwa, to make sure that you make this oral presentation.
Thank you, Excellency.
We thank you. And but Rin, what happens to the road levy? I hope you're not like taking out everything just to create a fund, yeah, for purposes of irrigation, and then you leave the roads to rot or something. But I like your idea, because if we could actually give 10%, I'm sure you have heard of the Maputo and Malabo declarations, where African countries committed to at least make sure that out of the GDP, 10% goes to agriculture. And perhaps this is one way of progressing that thinking.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Our proposal is that out of the 18 shillings levied under the Road Maintenance Levy Fund, we are not taking the whole of it. We are just proposing, since this fund is shared equally between Kenya Urban Roads Authority, Kenya Rural Roads Authority, and Kenya National Highways Authority, let also the National Irrigation Authority be a beneficiary. This will depend on what the National Dialogue Committee recommends and is eventually passed in Parliament. We can begin even with 5% of the fund, then go to 10%. If you remember, Your Excellency, CDF started as just 1 million per constituency, and based on the impact it had, it grew till today at about 140 million per constituency. So for a start, we are not proposing to take the entire 18 shillings per litre from the road maintenance levy, but just part of it and dedicating it to National Irrigation Authority.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana. We now finish with
indeed.
the final.
I think we have, Madam Co-Chair, the Nubian community. It would be good to listen to them, to asikilize briefly.
But after the Kiambu County Leadership Forum.
Okay, so
thank you very much. God bless you.
Tutajaribu tuwapatie nafasi kidogo.
I am exhausted. Waheshimiwa, you have 15 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair and Co-Chair, honorable members and Secretariat. I would want to thank you most sincerely for giving us this opportunity. We are almost the last. We believe, as the Bible says, that the last will be the first. Together with me is a group from Kiambu. We are indeed call ourselves Kiambu County Leaders Caucus, comprising of elected and non-elected business people and all kinds of people who have interest of Kiambu at heart. I will not ask the members to introduce themselves, but together with us is Honorable Jude Jombo, whom we know very well was a member of Parliament for Kiambu. We have Honorable George Mara, Honorable Damaris Wambui Weganjo, Honorable Kimani Wanjiko, Honorable Joseph Kalisho, Honorable Shikiru, Honorable Dismas Kamau, Dick Kamau, and Honorable Joyce Gogi. As you can see, the one that gender rule is very well observed in this group. Chair, we are here to make a presentation specifically on the issues pertaining to Kiambu County. Somebody sabotaging me. So we are here to discuss about a few issues pertaining to Kiambu County, and I'll start by telling you a bit about this county. As we talk, this county has a population of about 2.7 million people. The census, 2019 population census, gave it a population of 2.4. With the increase of immigration and birth rate, it is now estimated at 2.7. It is the second most populous county in this country after Nairobi. Unlike all the other counties, 60% of the population of this county lives in urban centers. Now that you can understand the magnitude of the requirements of essential services. As you talk about that county, it is a county that have had its own serious issues, despite the fact that this county is the 5th largest contributor to this country's GDP. And therefore, this committee or this group, this caucus, has sat and said they should get an opportunity to express a few things to you that needs consideration. For our consideration, we have 3 issues which we shall discuss. And the first one pertains to what we would call marginalization in quote of the county that is so close to Treasury and yet too far in terms of access of resources. This county with a population of 2.7 and having been an outgoing governor, we know very well that the share of revenue has hardly been enough for the population that we are talking about. And forget the fact that almost half of Nairobi population actually lives in Kiambu at night. And therefore, it was brought to our attention, Chair, that there was a proposal of several counties which are in our document, or proposal to make additional several counties, and it is there in our document. But we did not see at all the consideration of Kiambu County, notwithstanding the facts that I have talked about. And therefore, it was of great concern to us, particularly even if you look at per capita income. You know, there is this anomaly that is there about Kiambu, that Kiambu is rich. I can tell you, the per capita income of Kiambu is high, but it's not owned by individuals in Kiambu. It is owned by large factories of, I wouldn't want to say who. And therefore, the proportion of absolute poverty in Kiambu is probably higher than some counties where you talk about absolute poverty. And therefore, out of that, Mr. Chair, one of our proposals is the consideration that in the proposal to create counties that Kiambu qualifies, and we are making a proposal that we have 3 additional or 3 counties out of the current Kiambu County. Thika County, comprising of Thika, Juja, and Gatondo North, and Gatundu South sub-counties are highly urbanized. Thika has a population of 290,000, Juja 300,000, Gatundu North 109. Total of that which we were proposing to call Thika County is 817,697, growing at 4% per annum. You can imagine they will hit 1 million within the next 2 years. The second county we are proposing is Kiambu East County, comprising of existing Kiamba with a population of 236,400, Kiambu Township of a population of 145,903, Githunguri 165,232, Ruiru on itself as a constituency has a population of 371,000 people. That we are proposing to be the Kiambu East County with a total population of 918,646 as per the population census of 2019. The third one we are proposing is Kiambu West, a county comprising of existing Kikuyu with a population of 187, very soon about to hit 200. Kabete with a population of 199, again very soon wanting to hit 200. Remuru with a population of 159,000. Rari with a population of 135. Total 681, 382. And as you are aware, everybody in Nairobi now is moving towards the area. So the population growth rate there is 4.5%. It will hit a million very soon. So that is our proposal, Chair, in terms of thinking about creating counties, because we saw that was clearly not considered when that proposal was being made. And with that, I would want to pass on to Jude Jomo to talk about the next issue, which is again very, very important, and again it attaches on marginalization of the county as it is.
Thank you, Joint Chairs, for the opportunity. Kiambu County is made up of 12 constituencies, and all of them are heavily populated. Thika has a population of 284,700. Let me round it off to 3 figures. Juja has a population of 300,000. Ruiru has a population of 371. Kiamba has a population of 236. Kiambu has a population of 145,000. Githunguri has a population of 165,000. Gatundu has a population of 122,000. Gatundu North has a population of 109,000. Kikuyu has a population of 187. Kabete has a population of 299. Rimuru has a population of 159,000. And Rari has a population of 135,000. Some of the counties that have been doing presentations here have a lesser population than some of our constituencies. What eventually this means is that when the resources are shared, they don't get to our people, or if they do, they get in very small amount that may not necessarily help them. A case in point is bursary. We have seen counties which are able to pay bursaries for their children up to universities, others up to abroad. In our constituencies, it is a common practice to give bursaries of 2,000 shillings. It is some constituencies give even 1,000 as bursary. And this is after more injustice was done to us. I remember when I was in school, I was in a day school. Now that day school was converted into a boarding school. When it was a day school, it was enough for our people who were coming from primary school to go to that particular secondary school. But when it was made into a boarding school, it was converted from a day school to an extra county school. And then there were new regulations called the quota system of education, where that school as an extra county school, which was built by our own funds, in our own land, in our own effort, we could only take 20% of the children from our locality and 80% from other localities. It was not one school that was converted to an extra county school. About 60% of our schools were converted to extra county schools. Others were converted to national schools. So what does this eventually mean? It means that to the schools that we have built, we can only take 20% of our students to those schools. Then comes bursary, because now, with the delocalization also coming, our children are being posted to Kisumu, they are being anywhere in the country. Yet, we do not have money to pay for them. Now they come for bursary, and I give them 1,000 or 3,000 shillings. They cannot afford to get a quality education from the funds that we have. And then we are all going around saying people from Kiambu, the youth are just drinking. They have no alternative but to drink, because they are watching children from other areas come to their constituency, get a good quality education, then they go out there and get good jobs, and they remain without work. They are frustrated. And that is why we are saying we have to correct this injustice. We have to get an equitable share of the national cake. We contribute as Kiambu County, we are number 5 in what we contribute to the GDP. But what we get is not, it cannot be equated to what we give to the national coffers. And when we are asking for this, we are asking so that when we get new constituencies, because we are asking for 7 more constituencies. 1 in Thika, 1 in Juja, 2 in Roiro, 1 in Kiamba, 1 in Kabete, 1 in Kikuyu, and another one to be shared between Kikuyu and Rimuru. We are asking for 7 constituencies. This way, our population will be distributed in a more fair way, and we will be able to, our people will be able to benefit. So, Madam Chair, I think we are not being very, very unfair when we are asking for this. When we compare a population like a county like Kiambu with 145,000, and we are comparing it with a constituency in Kiambu, Ruiru, which has 371,000, I think we are just being fair when we ask this for our constituency.
Thank you, Honorable Jude Jomo. Is there anybody with a question?
No, there is another one, very small one, Chair, if you allow.
2 minutes then.
Honorable Mara, please.
2 minutes, kindly. Give him the mic.
Thank you, co-chairs. We're also putting a case for Kiambu County to be included in the equalization fund. The equalization, the act that sets up the equalization fund, that is the Article 204, Sub 1, and its attendant articles, are very, very, very clear when it comes to matters of the equalization fund. It says, in short, that the national government shall use the equalization fund only to provide for basic services, including water, roads, health facilities, electricity, to marginalized areas to the extent necessary to bring the equality of those services in those areas to the level generally enjoyed by the rest of the nation, so far as is possible. Chair, whereas Kiambu is generally true, it is true generally for Kiambu that many parts of Kiambu are arable and enjoy reasonable access to basic services. This is not true to the whole of Kiambu and the areas that I'll mention here. To be sure, Kiambu has about 500,000 members of its county that are living in abject poverty in areas that qualify to be arid and semi-arid areas, where rainfall is totally insufficient. These people have no cash crop, and indeed, to a very large extent, every other year when there's famine, they are recipients of relief food from the national government. And for this reason, we are asking that we be included in the equalization fund. We feel that the formula that is used for equalization has been based on assumption other than specifics. And we want this to be adjusted so that we can be able to have areas that are critically marginalized to enjoy funds from the equalization. To be specific, we have an area called Larari in Kiambu County. This area has a population of about 80,000 people who are in various parts of this constituency, that is down on the escarpment. I think these are areas that are very familiar to members here, the Kejabi side, and many other areas. We also have areas in Kikuyu. Kikuyu, sometimes people think that is a very rich area, but it also has areas that are very arid, and in fact, they are included or gazetted as part of ASOS, in the ASOS gazettement. And these areas include Karai, Nashu. We also have areas in Limuru that are totally dependent on relief. These are Deia. We also have a very large part in Thika, that is the areas of Goriba, Atuanyaga, that to a very large extent have suffered from insufficient rainfall and even access to good health facilities, schools, and roads. We also have parts of Juja. A lot of people think that Juja is highly industrialized alongside the Ruiru, but we also have areas in that sections in those areas, which also are ASO, and we would like to see them included in the equalization fund. To this extent, we believe that this committee will be able to forward our case and bring in a formula that is equitable, that does not base its the equalization fund on assumption, but on specific, so that these areas that are marginalized as far as equalization is concerned, they can be included as well.
Thank you very much. Any questions, clarifications? Looks like the word
to make a
clear.
comment.
Yes.
That, I actually do agree with you that there's an assumption that there are no poor people in urban areas, including Nairobi, Kiambu, and other places. In fact, I remember when I was in the Senate, I did argue for a very broad-based formula about stretchiness to urban poor through the equalization fund development index in some of these areas where probably there's no infrastructure. So we just generalize because we see Honorable Nyoro and others, we think all Kiambu people live the same way.
Thank you very much. Yes, Governor.
Yeah, Chair, I agree, and I'm very, very happy to hear Senator, because these are issues that we have talked about. There's one issue that I wanted to raise, which also pertains to the areas we are talking about, that this committee needs to consider. And it is the area of making the whole of arable land in Kiambu and surrounding areas into a concrete jungle. I think, and I know the Constitution provides for coming up with rules concerning land, but I think if we look at what is going to happen over the next 10 years, if we allow what is going to happen to continue happening, I think it's going to be, we are going to have to drive ourselves to the margin. I think this committee should be able to interrogate and ask itself, what are we going to do in order to reduce arable land to become the concrete jungle? Finally, on the last one, again, having been a governor of a county that is close to Nairobi, I think we have to revisit the issues of Nairobi metropolitan area. Because, Chair, it does not matter how much the governor for Kajiado or governor for Kiambu is going to do to improve health. If the governor of the adjacent county doesn't do that, then everybody else is going to suffer. We used to treat 40% of the population from Nairobi into Kiambu. So again, as an addition to the things that this caucus, and I know they would not be unhappy with me, I just wanted to add those two because it pertains to this.
Thank you very much. I am in total support on the equalization fund, because I know Kiambu County has been left out in that, and yet I have Mbere North, Mbere South that are no different from the Rakanithi or Kitui or Machakos in terms of climatic conditions. So I think there's need to relook at that. No doubt about it. Thank you very much. We've had you. Asanteni. Finally, we have the Nubi community as mentioned by the co-chair. Karibuni. Yes, I know. Nubi community, karibuni sana. Muko na dakika 15. You have 15 minutes.
Shukran bwana co-chair. Would like to take this opportunity to thank Okay, thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our leaders for giving us this opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Bashir Hussein, the team leader of the Nubian community here today. I believe you are having a copy, so I don't need to go through the introduction part of it, as we all know the history of the Nubian community. However, I'll just go straight to our 5 pointers, which one of them is the historical injustices. As we all know, the Nubian community were given the 4,197 acres of land at Kibra by then British government, and it was gazetted in 1934. For all that time up to date, we're having issues with previous governments, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank His Excellency former President Uhuru Kenyatta for giving us the 288 acres that is within Kibra out of the 4197. However, we are not contented to that. We are still pursuing our honorable rights through engagements with the previous governments up to date. We are yet to be given compensation of the rest of the acre. Why the historical justice? We believe as a community the issue of historic injustice, if it will be sorted out, it will give us an avenue of self-sustainability. Our great-grandparents were farmers, they were businessmen, and with those acreages, they were cultivating foods, they were rearing animals, but now we cannot do that, and we believe we are being just pushed. We understand the urbanization thing that has come in with the present government. However, we are proposing some issues, like in our bullets, the remaining 3,812 acres of the remaining land is not being talked about. We've waited since, because we were promised, take the 288, we are working on the rest of it. The Uhuru government went, now the Kenya Kwanza government has just come in, and we are yet to hear anything coming from that. So to us, it has brought a lot of issues to our neighbors that we welcomed in Kibra for those years. As you know, the Nubian community accommodated all the Kenyan tribes. Our great-grandfathers and up to us are people who are welcoming people. But up to now, we are having issues in terms of so many other things. So we believe through the settlement of the historic injustices, it will sort our issues. Being a minority community in Kenya, we want the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation report and the Dungulan Commission report to be implemented, because it gives us a leeway in some of our issues. Secondly, I'll go to the issue of representation of the electoral process. We are in an urban area whereby our numbers cannot give us seats. We are the only community here today that does not even have a chief in an area that we call home. We are in a position whereby all the political parties that are coming there does not even work with us. Our people are not anywhere. As we are speaking, we have non-representation anywhere, either the county government or any national assembly or anywhere. So we are pleading with this committee maybe to look at these issues so that at least it should not be at the national level only that we are looking at issues whenever conflict arises or dialogue issue, but we should move down to the latter. Number three, we are talking of the issue of inclusivity. Our community is only recognized during the electioneering period. The cycle of election is when the leaders come to our place. That's where they give a lot of promises, a lot of issues, but they are not implemented. So to us, we believe you cannot call for a national dialogue whereby a minority or a marginalized community cannot be listened, has no voice whereby to say his or her issues. So we are kindly requesting for inclusivity in all the issues that are working on. Number 4, it is very absurd that when we are talking of people with disabilities, we have them in our community, but they are not represented anywhere from the grassroots to the national positions. So it's an issue that we are looking at it, and we are pleading with this noble committee maybe to look at it generally. And lastly, we are talking of the issue of citizenship. Our elders were here for so long. I'm a 4th generation, and up to date we are having issues in terms of citizenship. There is no recognition. I understand there was some engagement from the previous parliament, and we were to be recognized, and unfortunately it has not happened. We don't know for various reasons. 2, this hinders our engagements. We can't find jobs because we are suffering. You don't have IDs. We are the only community maybe still being vetted. So our grown-ups, our young people cannot access some of the issues. So to me, I'll just leave it here, maybe to give a colleague to finish it off.
Thank you. Yes.
Kwa jina naitwa Abdul Aziz Ahmed Adam, na kama mlivyosikia hapo, sisi jamii ambayo tumeteseka, kwa kwetu hapa ni kama kumbukumbu, tunarudia hii mambo tu ya kurudia, lakini hatupati mafanikio. Lakini licha hayo, kama mlivyosikia, Jubilee wakati ule ilitutambua na tunawapongeza kwa kutupa title deed hiyo 288, ijapokuwa tulikuwa tuliweka beacon ya 300 12 ikaisha. Uone vile tulikuwa bado tunafinywa mpaka ikafika 288, kwa sababu 288 ndio sio halisi, lakini 12 ikachukuliwa, ilikuwa 300. Alafu kuna mambo ya freehold. Hii title tumepewa ni ya lease. Ukiona upande wa Dakureti na Kibra au ni kama wapata wakati wa ukoloni, lakini ukiona au upande ule walipata freehold, sisi hapa tukapewa lease. Na hii lease ni hatari kwa jamii. Ni hatari vipi? Mambo wendo kibadilika. Tujari serikali ijayo, kila mara tunakuwa na serikali wewe inabadilika. Mkikosa na hii jamii yetu, wanasikia walikuwa wanasema labda kuna jamii katika urban ambao sijui maskini au whatever. Kuna watu maskini, jamii yetu ni maskini, si tajiri. Wachache tu, lakini wengi wao mashauri ya dhiki. Sasa tutawa protect vipi? Namna tutawalinda vipi? Ndio tukaona